said Miami, are y'all ready? Drivers, start your engines.
Kyle Larson about to become the third winningest driver for Hendrick Motorsports, behind Jeff Gordon and Jimmy Johnson. 2/3 of the clean sweep for the weekend, and coming around turn 4 for his 30th career win, Kyle Larson for Hendrick Motorsports and Chevrolet wins in Homestead.
Well, that's what it sounded like, and this is what it looks like. I'm your host, Steve Letarte, joined by my old buddy from the CW, Dillon Welch. Dillon, man, appreciate you joining. I'm not at home. I'm on the road. As you can see, it's spring break for all of y'all that have kids. Well, I have kids. They're college-age kids, but so a little bit of trip actually across the pond. I'm all the way over in France at the moment, so a little bit of a hotel setup. So you're going to have to apologize. I'll apologize in advance if my normal flubs are better than normal, Dillon, because I got producer D-Lo on the buttons on the X's and O's, so this should be a whole lot smoother than normal.
What time is it there?
And it's not bad. It's 11:50, so not quite midnight. It was good. I watched the race on my phone. I had the Fox Sports app fired up. No, I'm good. I had the Fox Sports app fired up. I got to watch that, and you heard the call. Great stat by Mike Joy. Can you imagine this? The third winningest driver for Hendrick Motorsports behind Jimmy Johnson and behind Jeff Gordon. That's an impressive stat when you think about he's driving for a company that's won 314 races with 20 different drivers, right? So that is a big deal. I don't know where we start with the accolades. I want to start with the emotion. I don't want to talk about the race to start. Like he said, maybe one of his biggest wins. Does it shock you?
I was kind of surprised by that too, actually. And I think I wonder if Saturday's, sting of just how that ultimately kind of went down. So
give it a shout out. Give the fans who didn't see, right? So he was running the triple. Let's give the whole story. So the only person to ever complete the sweep is Kyle Busch twice, both times at Bristol, right? Truck Xfinity Cup. That's the sweep. Larson came to Miami to do it, won the truck race, had, 16-second lead in the Xfinity Series race. Is that right? Huge lead.
At some points, yeah. Yeah,
huge lead. Late yellow, loses it on the restart. That's the sting you're talking about. That's the one that got away.
Yeah. Yeah, and I was just looking here at our Racing Insights, post-race report, just to make sure that he had won at Miami in the Cup car before, and he has won there before. But I think that place, right? Like every time you go there, everybody's like, oh, you got to beat Kyle Larson. He's the guy you got to beat. And he knows that. He knows that it's his best opportunity probably, or one of his best opportunities every year to win a race. And I don't know if he ever feels pressure. But there's probably some expectation that, they should win there. The 5 car should win there. So I imagine to do it and do it in the closing stages the way they did probably felt pretty good.
I see some comments. If you're complaining about the internet, you can blame me. It's the longest internet connection though ever. I don't know how far it is. It's going to be thousands and thousands of miles, but because I'm over across the pond at the moment. I agree. So I look at it like this as a crew chief. Like when I used to go to, say, Talladega with Dale Jr., Daytona with Dale Jr., Martinsville with Jeff Gordon, there is, you don't want to say an expectation to win, because that sounds, like a little overconfident to think you're going to win a race, but you really want to win, right? Your chances are better because the guy you have sitting in the seat is just so good there. So I felt it as a crew chief, but I think this might be one of the first times we've seen a driver admit that he's just so good there and they've fallen apart so many different ways. Remember, he hit the barrels chasing, so I think it was Blaney, maybe to pit road one year there. And he's always seems to be the fastest. This race, though, the opposite, right? He didn't really dominate. It was a little non-Kyle Larson-esque, right? He was kind of, is average for Kyle Larson, fair to say, when you're that good. And then the long run at the end, he shows just how good he is there. But it's more than just the lap time. I know we have a bunch of B-roll. D-Lo will put it in right here. It's not just the lap time. It's the passes he makes, timing up these runs to like the slide job. I thought that in the booth, Clinton Kevin did a nice job of kind of explaining how you have to do this, right? You kind of dive to the bottom, carry enough speed to clear the guy, but not enough speed to stuff it in the fence.
Yeah, and he's always been, I think that's one of the things, if you watch him when he runs his dirt cars, he's so good in traffic. Like, and especially if he's leading and he's lapping cars or just driving through the field in general, he is so smart about understanding the best way to keep his momentum up in everything he drives. And here, obviously, at Homestead in the Cup car, it's very important to do exactly what you just said, right? You gotta kind of aim for a point on the wall and get to it quicker than the other guy, so he doesn't just run the fence and drive by you. Also, trying to save your tires, not just plow on the front end. And there's so much that goes into doing what you're watching him do there, and he just consistently does it better than everybody else at this racetrack. It's so impressive.
He almost makes it look easy, if that's fair. That's a great shot when you look out the front window right there and you see, I mean, there's not enough room for anything. And then right there, finally, Bowman kind of got over the cushion a little bit, got in the fence. Interesting, though, he said that he had gotten the fence earlier, bent something in the front of his car, and he lost a little bit of that feel. And, it's really that easy, right? You just don't – it's not like practice. You can't ease into it. So Kyle Larson, the race winner, we're going to circle back and have a lot of conversations with him. For every winner, there has to be a loser. And I guess how the race was lost for this one, we just saw it. It was in the fence, and it was Alex Bowman. I think we have a tweet from Alex Bowman. So this is, I think, why the fans can cheer on Alex. Right here, right? Pressure from the baddest dude on earth. I made a mistake and gave it to him. Congrats. I don't know. Like, that makes me like him even more, right? He won the Chicago street race a year ago. A lot of conversation about his career last year. He makes the playoffs and goes to media day, and all of his questions were about, is his career set at Hendrick and all of these things, which seemed ridiculous for a playoff media day, but he had to answer them. And then here he is in position to win the race, and he just goes on Twitter and admits he made a mistake. I empathize, but that's why we watch, right? Greatest race car drivers in the world, and we saw one make a mistake.
Yeah, and I'm with you kind of on the humility aspect. And I've kind of felt like since that Chicago race, and Alex has kind of always been that way, right? He's always been, kind of self-deprecating in a fun way and everything, and not afraid to, poke fun at himself. But I feel like I think that win for him last year was just a big weight off his shoulders. I think he's run better. He seems more relaxed when you kind of, talk to him in the garage and everything. And he probably feels like he can show that personality and be genuine, just because, his future for the time being is in a good spot at Hendrick Motorsports. But I can't imagine the looking in the mirror and seeing that 5 car just banging the boards like he was doing, and knowing one little mistake and it's all over. Because Larson at that stage of the race is very likely to not make a mistake. So tough spot for Alex to be in.
Yeah, well, he leads all drivers with 5 top 10s this year. I don't know if that's going to make him feel any better, but could Bowman have won if he had not hit the wall? That's John's question. Listen, you can never not know. Larson was going to get there. There was going to be a slide job. Wasn't going to work. I don't know. It's impossible to know. But yeah, I always tell everybody, you want to play that Jaws music, right? When I'll be honest, I'm like, I know Larson's fast, but Harvick even said it. He was like, man, he's going to go by Briscoe, and he's going to go by this guy, and he's going to go by Bubba. And then he got him in a hurry, like 1 corner clear, 2 more laps, 1 corner clear. That told me that he was coming. But we got a full show. We're going to have Todd Gordon on a little bit later, who was out on the call down in Miami. We also had Alex Weaver. Alex, I think, is in the studio down here. We're going to jump Alex in. She was on site. She sent some pictures of that right rear side that Clint Boyer kept talking about. It's hard to say for a guy that's won 30 times. It was an over-the-top celebration, but a front stretch burnout, and then brings his son out there we've seen before. But his emotion was different this time for me. Was it palpable? Did it feel different in person?
Well, I brought you guys a gift because I knew you, obviously, Dillon is back in North Carolina. Indy, I knew that you were across the pond. So I had to bring some confetti from Victory Lane, because the celebration, you would have thought that Kyle Larson just won a championship. It was, first they had bucket hats that they handed out because it was the Straight Talk 400 for today. So the bucket hats from Straight Talk came on, which I've never seen Cliff Daniels in anything other than a racing baseball hat. He's in a checkered flag bucket hat. Jeff Gordon is walking around taking videos and pictures of the car, and the whole entire right side of the car. It's not just a little spot on Kyle Larson's. It looks like he got several Darlington stripes. Above each wheel is, it just looks, the whole entire paint is rubbed off. I got some shots of it. I hope we'll show it. But it was a really big celebration. Owen Larson, his son, gets on top of the car. There it is. it didn't even look like they painted that portion of the race car. Completely rubbed off. And I think Clint was counting on the Fox Sports broadcast that he hit the wall like 17 or 18 times. And there is nobody better here at Homestead. I think we talk about those road course ringers and the folks that dominate when we go to road courses. Running the fence and Homestead Miami Speedway, Kyle Larson is a Homestead Miami Speedway ringer.
Yeah, we're going to talk about a few others because there were some I was looking for all day long. I was waiting to see Reddick. I was waiting to see some other guys that come to mind. But let's flip the script. You mentioned Jeff Gordon and Victor Lane. Well, you saw him on the broadcast, him and Jeff Andrews. That's a signature Rick Hendrick move to go to the loser, right, which I appreciate. Both went to console Bowman or have conversations with Bowman. I'm not going to say try to cheer him up, but at least obviously give them their attention. Were you close enough, or did you get to see any of that and just the body language of that conversation?
Yeah, so I walked over to Alex Bowman first, and I think we get the reaction of Jeff Gordon on the broadcast when Bowman hit the wall, and when you're two drivers, I mean, you can't be disappointed because your other driver is probably going to pull into victory lane when Alex Bowman makes the mistake, but then also you have one driver who just made a mistake and cost him the race. So a tough position for JG. I don't know how you handle it, but yeah, he walked over to Alex Bowman, and first when Alex got out of the car, it was complete dejection. Like you could tell he was beating himself up already. He had thought about it and got out of the car. Bubba Wallace actually walked over to him first. And Bubba was kind of smiling on his face, was kind of like patting his back, looked like a very friendly conversation, but Alex was just complete cold stone on his face, not smiling, not really interacting. And then Jeff Gordon walked over and a lot of like pats on the back. And I think what I got from the body language is it was like, hey, you made a mistake, but tell me what happened. Alex then started describing, we see the hand signals that race car drivers love to give us. And I felt like he was, walking through what had happened and how he made the mistake. And then Jeff Gordon, like a true pro and a true classy gentleman, pats him on the back and walks to victory lane to congratulate his other driver who just won.
So I have a lot I want to talk about with the race, but Alex, before I let you go, I want to know there was conversation, even communication from NASCAR, these crazy fires we've seen all over the country, West Coast, East Coast, all these things. And there was actually, I'm going to call it a brush fire, some sort of fire in the Miami Homestead area. There was question leading into the weekend. It looked like a great crowd in the end. The event went off without a hitch. Being down there, did you notice anything? I mean, the event still looked pretty full.
Yeah, event was full. A ton of people came out to see the race, and you could not tell. I mean, even looking in the sky when you pull into the racetrack and hearing from folks, Thursday and Friday when the brush fire wasn't contained hardly at all, you could see it in the sky and it looked kind of luminous and really scary, like ominous, like, oh, this is really dark and looks like it's going to be a pretty major event, but could not tell it at all, could not see it. A shout out to the first responders. They were celebrated at the start of the race for obviously getting everything ready and making sure that folks are safe. It is now contained. They had over 50% this morning and no smoke in the air, no smells, anything. So kudos to everybody that handled that because it could have been a heck of a lot worse, and glad we got a race done on Sunday.
Well, bravo to the brave men and women who are down there fighting the fire, which allows everybody else to just go enjoy a race. We've enjoyed it. Appreciate you dropping in. Enjoy the sunny South Florida weather.
Thanks, guys. Enjoy Paris, Steve. I'm super jealous. Give the city of lights and love my blessings.
I will. I'll give it everything I have. We're gonna see if I'm tough enough. But all right, where do we want to start? I mean, I like to go down the rundown because I feel like I missed this last week, just to make sure we talk about everyone who had the day worth covering. How the race was lost. We talked Bowman. Is it fair to say Blaney is the next? Not that he lost it, but the 12 car had the car, led the most laps, lost an engine at lap 208. We have the in-car. You want to hear when an engine goes, when it goes bad, take a listen here. We got some in-car audio, both from the driver and the car itself.
Blown up or something.
That's it. Oil and water don't mix.
Nothing behind you. You have got to be me.
You hear the frustration. Look, it's 2 of the last 3 weeks. An engine has eliminated the 12 car. I thought Ryan did a nice job in his interview. He talked about how fast the 12 was, how much positive it was going to be. I did want to bring this up, though, because I've been in this position. We saw Ryan and his crew chief, Hassler, kind of fist bump and talk to each other a little bit. So for the fan who doesn't quite understand the size and the enormity of NASCAR currently, right? As a crew chief, you really don't have anything to do with the engine, right? You just install a correct engine that the engine shop sends over and you prepare the car. But you do have empathy, right, for the engine shop. That's the same engine that takes you to victory lane. But I will say, while you're probably 99% sure you had nothing to do with it, I would say you probably go get with all your engineers, make sure any setting you have, any electronics that you can control, the temperatures in the vehicle, every shift you go over with your driver, Ryan. But, it's not that you are pointing fingers saying, hey, it's not us. It's more like you just want to look at the engine shop and said, we believe in you guys. We double-checked. We don't think it was us, right? I mean, it's kind of, you want to support your teammate, and in this case, it would be Roush Yates Engines.
Yeah, you win and lose as a team. Like we hear that all the time when guys, defend their pit crews or whatever the case is that that maybe hinders a shot at victory. There's nothing that divides a team more than throwing guys under the bus that are working just as hard to deliver and build the best product that they can. So they do say they're always the fastest right before they blow up. So they were pretty darn fast today. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah, they never break when you're having an awful day. I'm going to tell you,
Right.
That thing will run forever. They'll just run forever. Really, I mean, Team Penske in general, right? The 22 of Logano gets damage on pit road. A lot of pit road chaos today. I know it's a narrow pit road, and we've seen contact there before. It seemed to be just over the top today, even more than we've seen in the past. And then Cindric sped late. This is kind of, I think, what ended up getting Logano. Josh Berry pulls out, hits the 5, spins back around. Thank goodness nobody was in those next 2 pit stalls. That could have been really bad. You see Josh Berry, last week's winner, kind of facing the wrong way. Logano the same way. A little bit of damage. Look, these cars are very sensitive. It's impossible for me to know. Losing track position already hurts. But then if you move that splitter around at all, it really can end your day. He recovered. Where did he finish? Let me look at my trusty notes here. The 22 came back to finish 14th, so a recovery. Cindric, he got caught speeding late with the 24 car. They both got caught speeding on the last style of pit stop. So Cindric, back-to-back top 10s in the stages, ended up 19th in the race. So Team Penske, as a whole, it just kind of got away from them.
Yeah, which is very un-Penske-like. Normally, I feel like you think of them as having everything buttoned up from we always hear execution, the intangible things, right? They always seem to be one of the best at those. So rare that, all 3 of their cars today kind of have issues that are, not on track related.
We got a question here about shifting. Danny, I'm going to put it up. Danny says, I wonder if Blaney was downshifting like the 2. I would assume he is, but I will tell you, Danny, that these cars now, Harvick mentioned it on the broadcast. So you downshift for performance, but also car handling. So it's a 5-speed gearbox now, not a 4, 5-speed sequential. So a lot of tracks, the majority, I would say, right? You downshift from 5th to 4th to kind of helps, it kind of helps the car turn if you're a little tight. And it just overall adds grip, I've heard from drivers, which is kind of crazy to think it's just an overall grip thing. It must have something to do with just the deceleration of the rear tires, kind of the longitudinal drag of the tire makes it feel like it's in the racetrack. So I'm sure he was shifting, but that shouldn't be a reason. He wouldn't do anything he wasn't cleared to do. So I would imagine that shifting is expected by the engine manufacturers.
Yeah, there was a lot of guys doing that. I think they had an onboard of Priest, and he was doing the same thing too.
Well, here we go. How about Chase Elliott? Here's the question. The fan wants to know. We got the onboard. Let's ride along with the 9 of Chase Elliott coming onto pit road. All right, so that looks normal to you. That's because you normally see it under green. Under green flag conditions, you can come on pit road a couple wide. It happens all the time. You kind of blend your way up to 1. But under yellow flag conditions, the rules are that you must enter pit road single file, and then you can exit 2 wide, right? And people will kind of move out of the right lane's the fast lane. You will see guys move to the middle lane and then peel off the pit so there's not a stack up. Clearly, Chase Elliott is side by side with the 2 of Cindric coming on pit road. They had a great radio that he says, listen, I turned left and got next to Cindric because I didn't want to stack up a run in the back of him, which I'm believing him, right? I think he feels like he's going to hit the back of the 2. And he said he gave the spot back. I just don't think giving the spot back overcomes the penalty. I think that does work if you're at a super speedway race, you get forced below the WL line, you can kind of give the spot back and you ease your way back in. I think the idea here is they don't want the drivers stacking up so much that they want to bail out left. I'm going to ask NASCAR this week to get clear kind of feedback to say, hey, I know you gave the spot back. Does that not matter? Obviously not. You called the penalty. So I'm looking at this as you entered double file, period, or exclamation point, right? There is no more to the story. The other question I would have had, though, is if he would have been pit stall 40 or 39 and he enters there and he turns left because he had crossed the rear bumper line of the two, is it still a penalty? In my mind, it is, but that's the nuance that NASCAR is going to get into right now that they have called it. And it is a rule. I'm not saying they're wrong for calling it, but now it's going to be looked at time and time again, right? So they really have to make sure that everyone doesn't break this rule.
Yeah, I actually had that same thought of some of these pit roads. It is a quick. If you're that first stall on pit road entry, like you got to be there quick. You got to be making your turn as soon as you get basically past the commitment line. So I would actually be curious too, kind of how strictly they will police that.
Well, so my theory is you can be left of the two because
you just can't be side by side.
Correct. Well, so what's side by side? That doesn't mean right to left. Side by side means is I am to the lane left of you and my front bumper is offset of your rear bumper. That's technically side by side. Like if you're in the right lane and I'm in the middle lane, I know that sounds silly and we're getting into the nuances, but it really comes down to the nuances. I think if you can be left of the two car, if you don't cross his rear bumper and you're not side by side.
Yeah.
I think we got our man Todd Gordon. We'll see if Todd, first of all, I'll get his opinion on this penalty. He's also down in Miami. I think he's straight off the MRN broadcast. We'll bring Todd in. Todd, there he is, right MRN off the call. Blue.
Yeah.
Oh, look at that. In the bright MRN blue. Looking good, Todd.
Yeah.
Got the tan.
It cleans me up,
I like it. Well, let's start with the Chase Elliott. Well, first, let's start even bigger. I want to get back to Chase Elliott. Just Larson, you were there in person. You got to see it out the window. Give me your overall thoughts of the race. It seemed like there was racing everywhere on TV.
Oh yeah, I mean that's what Homestead brings to us is that ability to have racing everywhere. I thought Ryan Blaney was. You talked about it a little bit earlier, but I thought he was by far the best car. If you look at the statistics, his speed was. End of that second run, we'll get into that later. But the weekend kind of played that way. I don't think the fastest car won any of the three races we had here at Miami Homestead. So it's one of those things that you just got to kind of put the whole day together. And I really, when we saw that caution come where we were going to have a 50-some lap run to the end, the longest run that we would have seen on tires all day long, I really kind of paid attention. Kyle Larson got himself up on the wall really early in that run. And I feel like when you rip the wall here and you do it with the expertise that Kyle does, you're using that air cushion to make speed. You're not using your tires. And I really think I felt like his tires were in a better position when we got to the closing laps of the race because he was running the wall very early in the run and put himself in position to be able to take advantage of it. I kind of said to Alex Hayden sitting to my side, about 40 to go, I said, Kyle's already on the wall. Look for him at the end. I thought Reddick might as well, but he didn't come forward. But Kyle definitely, he had the best tires at the end because he had ripped the wall all run long. And I think, running the triple for him was really good because he had 2 days of just getting that rhythm up there. It's a different race vehicle with a truck or an Xfinity car, but the rhythm and the routine of being that close to the wall, I think he got really comfortable with.
For multiple reasons, practice. Oh, so I was just going to say, for multiple reasons, practice has been a big point of conversation. So even somebody like Kyle Larson, you were saying, the laps help. Dillon, I cut you off.
No, well, I was just going to reiterate what Todd said. I talked to Adam Wall, who was his crew chief on the Xfinity car, and he said the exact same thing. He said, we want him to be up there early. We trust he's not going to knock the right side off, but it saves tires. It helps. It gets him in a rhythm, but it saves tires. And that was what he did on Saturday. He just got up there and once he got up there all the way, that's where he was making speed and he was saving tires. So I think you're spot on there, Todd.
And you talk about that to explain it to the people who are listening at home. I mean, you kind of get up there and you get that air, you're kind of pushing air between the wall and the car. And that's turning the car around the corner, and the tires aren't having to do all of the lateral turning of the car. The air is actually kind of pushing on it and pushing it around the corner. It lets you, to your point, you're not sliding the tires trying to make that speed. You're letting the air give it to you, and it does. It makes your tires, it puts your tires in a better position. It keeps some longevity in them.
Well, fourth to first in the last 9 laps. So good speed and also a good way to pass. All right, so circle back to the conversation we were on, which was the penalty for the 9. I've heard it, must come on pit road, single file under yellow. We know the rule. I can't remember it being called in recent history. I'm not going to say it was or wasn't. I'm just trying to think off the top of my head. I don't remember this one being, super popular as far as being called. I remember maybe I want to go back to Martin Truex Jr. turned left at New Hampshire and passed the car in front of him as he gassed into his pit box. He was called that day. So I have seen it called, right? Not being single file. Your thoughts on the 9 clearly was in violation. I think there's no doubt he was left of the 2 and next to the 2. He did give it back. Does that affect your opinion on the penalty?
I don't think giving it back does. I think you've got to call it how it gets to the line, and if you've driven up to that point, it's at what point do you say it's completely given back? And to your point, the pit stall. If you had a Denny Hamlin who was back there, and I think pit stall 40, Ryan Blaney was 39. Kyle Larson was even up there. 36 or 7. So those guys, at what point when they start shading right, are you going to call them? You got to keep. I think that you have to have an invisible line, and that car has to be able to at all times pull back into line. And if it's going to make contact, then you broke the bumper. I just don't feel like at this point right here, if he hooks a right to get back in line, he hooks the 2 car. And
or even another way to look at it, Todd, to your point, if we just stay right here, even if you can back it up a little, D-Lo, when they're side by side, if the 2 car is in the first pit box and he turns left, because he's not looking in his left side mirror because you're supposed to be single file. That's really the reason for the rule. If the 2 car turns left, assuming he's to it like a lane change, he's not looking to his left because you're not supposed to be too wide. That's going to spin the 2 car into the pit box. Major safety issue. I know I don't want to make this more than it is, but that's the reason. When people say, why is there a rule? That is the why. Because on entry, you have to assume you can move left without somebody next to you.
And the viewer at home has to understand 80% of the driver's focus is on their dash for making sure that they're running their lights and understanding how fast they can go down pit road. It's not like they're paying attention to everything around them. It's a glance up out the front windshield, but most of it in the dash. So you've got to protect him from something like this. He wouldn't have noticed this. There's no way there'd be focus on the side mirror to see what's to your left.
Well, that was the big penalty I kind of want to talk about. I love to explain the rules, but there was a couple different areas in the race of strategy. There was a green flag pit cycle in stage 2 that was pretty interesting. And then Carson Hocevar, Luke Lambert makes the call to kind of put tires on and then not run very hard. I know you've looked into both. Which one do you want to start with?
Let's talk about Carson. That was end of stage 1 and put him in a position that I thought a really good call by Luke Lambert and Carson. We had that caution with lap. It was late 60s. We had a caution. We ended up going green with 6-7 laps to go or something like that. He doesn't use the tires up. And I look back at the lap times. He's probably 5, 6, 7 seconds slower than the cars on tires. You can see the cars that have got 30 some laps on tires driving by him. He's taking care of the tires, not wearing the tires out, and put himself in a position where they could cycle at the end of this stage by staying out and got the lead.
Yeah, look, it sounds like he's saving. I mean, it sounds like the yellow's out. I mean, he's off the gas so far back. He's saving so much tire. So then the caution comes out for the end of the stage, and he stays out. And for me, I'm thinking, man, he ran 5 or 6 hard laps. This car is going to sink like a stone. I mean, they weren't as good as new tires, but it cycled him, really gave him the track position that he needed.
It did, and they hung pretty well. I think he hung around 6th or 7th for a while. I looked back at it. I think he was 13th coming into that caution. And I think he netted out 9th at the end when they got back to the caution again. Definitely a positive for those guys, and a good, smart move. The only thing that might be a negative is if he really raced hard, maybe he could have gotten a stage point. But where they had come off pit road, I think a good decision to decide, hey, we can't get to points positions. Let's save it and cycle ourselves forward.
D-Lo, producer D-Lo on the 1s and 2s. I'd love to tell you that this is my screen, but I'm traveling and don't have all my tools, but he's showing us 2 line graphs here, right? So we got the 77 who we just talked about, and we're talking about this moment where he pits, goes all the way down, flat lines, and then basically cycles to the front right here. Compare that to the red line, the 71 to McDowell, because he pits at the same time the 77 does, but only puts on 2 tires and thinks he's going to cycle his way to the front, and he drops on 2 tires. Where's he end up right there? If you cycle over, I can't quite see it, but outside the top 20. Which then forces him to pit again. So a gamble for 2 tires ends up being a net loss of maybe 4 or 5 spots.
Yeah, I think it was 17th to 22nd. And it's a gamble. I mean, if the caution comes out quick, they stack up on a restart, there might be an opportunity to steal something there. But definitely Homestead is a place that tires come in sets of 4 and a tough one there. But I really thought that, it's a gamble that Travis Peterson took with the 71. Didn't really pay off for him because we went all the way through that to the stage end. But really like the call that Luke Lambert made with Carson Hocevar. I think netted positive for them and put them in a great position to fight forward.
All right, I want to jump into some strategy, but real quick, we got some fan questions, and that's what we love the fans putting them in here. This is an interesting one. I want to get your take. No mention of loose wheels today. Is it just a Vegas thing, or what happened? I have my opinion. Gentlemen, I'll let you start.
Who wants to take it? I'll take it.
Go ahead,
I felt like Vegas was the first race that we went to an intermediate where these guys can really rip off 9-second pit stops. When you look at the short tracks with where the wheels are, it's a little slower pit stop because you're a little challenged with where we get to with the ride heights and pieces like that. Speedway racing is its own entity in that really you're not putting tires on except for stage breaks. You're doing fuel only stops, and then COTA is its own deal. So Vegas was the first time these pit crews really show up and know that track position is everything. They've got to rip the 9-second pit stops. I think they were a little rusty, and everybody trying to make that speed. I think it's the first time they tried to, and we saw a couple errors out of it. This is week 2 of being in that. I think the rhythm got better. I think some people learned from last week and got some more reps in and put themselves in good position. Your thoughts,
Yeah,
Dillon?
you don't want to do that 2 weeks in a row, right? So everybody's probably extra cognizant this week of making sure everything's buttoned up.
It's funny. They're still close enough, though, that when the 24 had their issue and had to come back down pit road, they jacked up both sides and tightened the wheels. Not that because they thought one was loose, but I think, they had time. I think it's actually a great idea by Rudy just to say, hey, let's make sure they're tight. But that tells you how fast the pit stops are going.
Yeah, and there's no penalty to that. I think great call by Rudy. It's like, all right, we're serving a penalty. We've got to go tail end anyway. We're coming down here. Let's just go ahead and make sure that everything is I think they jacked him up, actually back the nuts off, put him back in, take a visual on him. You're in a good spot. And you can make sure that you're in a good spot for the next pit stop if it happens. You got the torque where you want to have it.
Yeah, that speeding penalty for Byron ended a streak of 65 races without a speeding penalty. So it definitely was a costly run. All right. Green flag pit stops. We know what happens. We see it at Richmond. We see it at Darlington. We see it at Miami. We see this cycle of how long do you run on old tires? Where do you flip the strategy? I thought there was no better or no more obvious time than in stage 2 today with Blaney and the 11 of Hamlin. Blaney pits a little on the earlier side. The 11 runs it to mathematically the middle of the stage. So this right here is the delta is the 12. The 12 is the yellow line. So we see the 11 is the purple line. He's losing a little bit of time. And then the 12 pits. So the 11 goes way ahead, right? Has a big gap, a big lead right here over the 12. The 12's new tires is shrinking that lead quickly. That's why you see the angle of the slope of the purple line for the 11. Then the 11 pits, and then you see it pretty flat for a little while, and then he just gains it all back on the last 10 laps of the run. It's funny, Todd, when you and I crew chiefed, I felt like you would be to the end of your fuel window. And then it started shifting more and more and more to the middle of the run with free passes and all these other ways to get your lap back. And then in the last 2 or 3 years, it went to, man, if you come at the middle, you're the last guy to come. Are we starting to see it go back the other way? Like, break this down.
Well, I think you are, and it wasn't only. I think the 11 is a great piece here, but the 5 did it was in a good position as well. Kind of the same thing. We saw a handful of cars go and split this right down the middle. And when you look at it, I really, the guys short pit. We talked about the most efficient way to use your tires because every lap they get slower. Is that if I've got 80 laps to go, then I want to go 40 and 40 because 41's a lot slower than 40 is. So I want to keep it where I'm using the best out of both sets of tires. But then the opportunity to short pit people, which is what Blaney did, and he wasn't the first of them. I think he was 3 laps into it at that point. There were some really aggressives, but you short pitting because you get such a margin. By doing that when you've got new tires on, you drive away, and you see that. I mean, Blaney ended up with I think it was almost 9 seconds the separation by the time that whole cycle had ended there after the 11 and 5 had pitted. But you've got that advantage, and you've got cars in that, and those race cars have to overcome that. And at these single groove racetracks, you're golden when you've got that because the guys that have better tires, they'll use their stuff up to try to figure out how to pass somebody. But a place like here at Miami Homestead, where you can run the bottom, there's 4 lanes you can drive. So if there's traffic you've got to deal with, you just go where they aren't. And we didn't see, for the longest time, it looked like the 11 and 5 were coming forward. I thought they might get to third, but then the shelf happens when the 12 got to traffic and couldn't do anything with it. Tires just worn off in the end of it, and the 11 and 5 just drove forward in a hurry.
And we have all these tools that model this, but what you can't model is traffic. I mean, for the fans, look, we had tools when I was on top of the pit blocks that would tell you after you pitted where you would rejoin traffic. So you might come a lap early or a lap late to try to blend in front of a group of cars so you don't wait till you get behind them. But it's just impossible. You can predict where you think your balance is going to go, but traffic is just such a downfall. And Dillon, I know you cover mostly on Saturday for the CW, but this is, I think, the big difference. Like when we talk about differences from Saturday to Sunday, these green flag cycles, tire management, all those are the nuances that I just don't think the Xfinity races are long enough consistently for these young drivers to learn this, right? You have to learn this on Sunday. And I think that's back to Todd's point. That's why it really works when your drivers, Kyle Larson, who's great at running the top, and Denny Hamlin, who is as good as anyone for running this strategy. We've seen it work at Richmond and Darlington for Denny.
Well, and I think to that point, I mean, Larson was, you talked at the top of the show about how he had a 15-second lead. That was in the middle of stage 3 when it was the longest green flag run of the day. And he was just putting it to him because nobody else, to your point, maybe didn't know how to do it, but certainly didn't know how to do it as good as he did. So I agree. I think it's rare that we get green flag pit stops in the Xfinity series in that third stage, but I enjoyed it yesterday because of that. And I think it made the middle kind of section, or the second, the last third of that race kind of an interesting strategy standpoints.
Well, Todd, I appreciate you digging into the details. I liked it. I mean, that last run in it just had to be amazing. It had to be so much fun to watch. I was there when Reddick had that win last fall with a move around 3 and 4 that looked like a video game move. I know we talk about Chastain's like that, but my mind didn't think he could make it work. Watching Larson, we talk about how good he is, but you got to see perhaps him at his best in those last 9 laps today. Even though he said he thought he made a few mistakes, it had to be so much fun out the window.
Oh, it was. And really to watch that, I started watching that when Larson was about 12th and driving forward. It just was fun to watch him actually just manipulate the traffic and how dedicated he was to running up there at the wall. And I knew as much as I saw him just on the wall. And to the point, I think to run the triple this weekend paid dividends because he felt very comfortable up there and could rip it. But it's put him in a position. I didn't think he'd get there. And then all of a sudden it's like, okay, your tires are still good. I thought Alex Bowman did a good job, but Kyle pushed him into making a mistake and put himself in a great position.
Well, Derek agrees. He thought those last 30 or 35 what it was all about. All right, buddy, safe travels. Appreciate you jumping on.
Thanks.
We didn't do this last week, but this is something I think we could do a little bit better job of. I want to go down through this running order because there's a lot of drivers that need some focus. We don't have to spend a ton of time on all of them. We talked about Larson. We talked about Bowman. Bubba Wallace, I know he's disappointed, but a good run, great run, ran up front. I know it got away from him there at the end. Don't know what he was battling for handling, but a good run. When you think about 23-11, you think about Tyler Reddick, but it was Bubba Wallace who was the leading driver of that camp down in Miami. All
weekend. Yeah. I mean, he qualified qualified up front, ran up front all day. So good. And he runs good at Kansas too, which is not quite the same, but you can move around there. You got to be able to run the wall. You got to be able to run the bottom well. And, Bubba showed that he's not just a Kansas specialist. He can do it at Homestead too.
Yeah, most laps Bubba's led since Texas 23. And think about the big bounce back from Toyota for really nothing going on a week ago to getting 4 cars up front this week. So a big adjustment. And in that Toyota camp, Chase Briscoe, who they've kind of been snake bit as a team. I think we all know Chase Briscoe could pedal down when the 19 can get it done. Sometimes it just takes a little bit. You have Chase 4th, Denny 5th. So you have JGR rounding out the top 5 with a couple cars in there.
And I was just scrolling Twitter during the race, and I saw somebody had tweeted there was some radio communication between James Small and Drew Herring, I think, who spots for Chase. And they were concerned that Chase was going to burn the front tires off, I think, because he was kind of doing he wasn't entering on the wall. He was kind of sliding up to it. So I was kind of watching him towards the end to see if he started to backslide, and he never did. So I don't know if he if he changed what he was doing there at the end, or if the car was just good enough that he didn't use his stuff up. But either way, I think it's the best run of the year for those guys in the 19 camp. Good finish.
I'm learning from Kevin Harvick. I've never heard an analyst talk about how much steering wheel to make the car go through the corner, right? Like I get that as a crew chief, right? So it's not like it's nothing we have never worked on, but it's obviously something he really worked on, because he talks about how much steering each driver uses, like he has studied it. And he talked about Chase Briscoe's steering input. Chris Buescher, is it fair to say the man out of nowhere, didn't see him most of the day, ran just inside the top 15, ends up 6th. And then how about AJ Allmendinger? Actually, I got a fan right here. What is it with the dinger in Miami? Right here, best average finish of anyone yet. Nobody talks about it. Cooper was mad. Nobody is talking about the dinger.
I picked him in fantasy this week. He's always good there. He ran. Didn't he finish 3rd there a few years ago? I think. I mean, he just, I don't know what it is either. But he just is always, he's always around. He's always there. So not always winning.
The year, not even just look, before we say just I think that Kaulig has taken a step up in their oval track program. The dingers looked better this year than I expected.
Agreed. Yeah. I mean, they just, let's put it, frankly, they have not been good last few years, and they, I think, have stepped it up too. I'd agree.
So I like it. Cooper, you're right. We're going to talk about it, give him his due. Down the list here, we got Preece, 9th, good run. Justin Haley, the Spire contingent. We talked about the 71 and the 77 and their strategies. They set on a poll last week at Vegas. I talked this week to Ryan Sparks, who's like the head of competition at Spire, and he said that poll was really big for them because it's like a banner you can hang, right? You see improvement, but you like to win a competition. Qualifying is a competition. Everyone's trying to do it. So that was a big week for them. But here you have Justin Haley, 10th place finish.
Yeah, and that's good, right? I mean, because they're another one of those teams where we feel like they've been fast. They just have not gotten the results that they probably deserve. So, and Justin was probably, of the 3, I would think maybe the one that you would have not expected this weekend to have the best result of those 3 cars, just because Hocevar and McDowell were a little bit better. But top 10's a top 10 either way. So good run for Haley.
Yeah, I'll just keep going down the top 15 here. Zane Smith, good run in that 38. William Byron, huge recovery from a penalty to get all the way back up to 12th. Dillon, I thought he was going to have a good run. Austin Dillon faded a little bit there. Logano, Eric Jones, Noah Gragson, Josh Berry, Chase Elliott, so on and so forth as we go back. But I think we have to close out with talking about the man of the hour. Should we be surprised? Well, here was a great stat. The top 4 drivers all had their best Miami finish, I believe is the stat that they were trying to sell me earlier. And I think it's a great statement about how, that seems like the field is a little jumbled up. Maybe if that's fair. Maybe that's not fair since Bell's won 3 races this year. It's not jumbled up at all for him. Crashed early in this race. But 30 wins for Larson at only 32 years old. I mean, the sky's the limit, right? I mean, is there any reason we don't think he's going to go have another multiple win season?
It's interesting to me. We were talking about that he's 3rd now all time on Hendrick Motorsports wins list behind Jeff and Jimmy. And he's been, this is his 5th year with Hendrick, I think, or 5th or 6th year with Hendrick. Yep. So I'd be curious kind of what the math is of when Jimmy and Jeff got to 30 wins. And I wonder, frankly, is Kyle going to have the longevity career-wise that those two had to even get to those numbers? Is he going to be a full-time NASCAR driver long enough to reach 83 at Jimmy or 93 with Jeff? I would be genuinely curious if he sticks around long enough to do that. But either way, 30 wins already in 372 starts is what our Racing Insights boys say. Pretty good. And I think the thing too that impresses me about this weekend is that he was so good in all 3 different disciplines, right? And then the truck, the Xfinity car, and the Cup car, and they're all very different. And they take different skill sets to run the wall, and he just made it look easy. He had the cars or trucks, he gave the right feedback to get them set up right to be able to go up there and run that way. Just so impressive. Just in general, I think he just showed how good he is this weekend in all 3 cars. Not even because of what he was doing on track, but just how he put himself in those positions.
Hey, D'Lo, throw the 5-car battle. You still got that video? Put that back up. We talk about running the wall. I think a lot of guys can run the second half of the corner pretty effectively. They can even run the middle third pretty effectively. I think the magic of running the top And the difference between the goods and the greats is the first third of the corner. Dale Jr., great.
Yep.
Reddick, great. Larson, great. And it's right. So now he's turning to the bottom to make a pass. But if we're going to get a little in-car look of him running the top, I want you guys to see how he enters the top. Like most cars, and you were talking about with Briscoe, they kind of turn, they leave the wall for just a few feet, and then they get back to the wall because you don't want to drive straight in. But watch this. I'll back that up, D-Love. Play just that entrance into turn one again. That is it right there. So if we back this up, you know, and play going down to turn one, watch this. I'm going to say it doesn't move an inch. Like, he doesn't turn left at all.
That's where the
right?
speed is, right? Is
that's
into
the magic
center.
of running the top.
Yeah.
Is that for you race, there's one thing to driving it into the cushion. There's another thing to driving it in on the cushion.
Yes. That's exactly the difference. And that's kind of my point, right? Is like I was talking to him this weekend, and it's so interesting because you got to have your car set up a certain way. You got to be tight enough to be able to drive to the wall, like you said, not float up to it. You want to be able to drive your car in on the wall and drive it to a point, right up against the fence. You can't be too free and slide up to it. And it's just amazing that he can do it lap after lap after lap. And he understands, okay, maybe I get in, maybe one corner he gets in too fast. And just the understanding and the decision-making at that speed to be able to know how to get the car angled and slowed down and pointed to not just bounce off the fence. That's what's the most impressive to me. When people say, he does it lap after lap, there's so much more than just aiming at a point and driving, right? Like he's adjusting it 24/7 while he's in there, ripping around there. It makes it look easy.
And what happens is, because if you enter at the wall, then you're running an arc. It's really like tying a bottle of water to a string and swinging it, right? Like you're running the same arc, so you can just run at a great speed. Where then if you drive in away from the wall, then you add a diamond to it. And
right.
Now you have to turn the wheels a little bit more, and I think it's easier to kind of stuff it in the fence. All right, you ask and you shall receive. Jeff Gordon's 30th win came in his 158th career start, which is just mind-boggling numbers. Jimmy Johnson's 30th came in his 215th start. Larson's 24th win with Hendrick came in 149 starts. Gordon's was 135, Jimmy Johnson 186. So if you look at just the Hendrick careers, because you got to remember Gordon and Jimmy, up until the later years with Jimmy, right? They're all Hendrick careers.
Right.
So Larson at Hendrick Motorsports has won 24 times and 149 starts. Jeff Gordon, 24 and 135, so 14 quicker. Jimmy Johnson, 24 and 186 starts, and he got well over 80. So our boys at Racing Insights are running the keys, looking that up. So to your point, the trajectory's there. The question is, in today's world of NASCAR, the time on track is less than what Jimmy and Jeff had. I would argue the time away from the track. I can't speak to sponsor obligations, but as far as race preparation and things like that, I think it's a little more consuming. What that means for Larson, I don't know. We'll have to see if he can keep the desire that he wants to be, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And that's, does he go, what's the point in his career where he says, I'm just going to go race sprint cars or something? He's been vocal about that. So is it another championship? Is it a Daytona 500? I don't know. I'd like to see how many cup wins he could get, though, because he'll keep racking them up. There's no doubt about that.
Well, and I'll leave it with this. We have some new stats we're going to be talking about week in and week out. These are NASCAR insights, and these are basically, if you watch golf, if a guy's good at putting or good at driving or good at a wedge game. Well, we're going to start breaking these guys down with, it's a metric, it's a measurement, but we're looking at passing, defense, and kind of speed are the three I like, and restarts. Those are the four I really like. And restarts are what they are. A few laps after the restart, how good you are. Passing is when you close in on a guy, can you get the job done? Defending is when a guy's trying to pass you, can you defend? And then speed is just where you rank, right? So if I look at today's world, right, Kyle Larson was second in passing, second in defense, 24th on restarts, if you can believe it, right? So right there's the stats. And it's red on the restarts, but he gets out and said he's bad at the short run. So it's exactly what you think. Denny Hamlin, he was super green on restarts, kind of kept him in the game, right? So everybody has their weaknesses and their strengths. Bubba's struggled statistically passing, right? He's in the red, third guy there down. So you start to see the outliers and the trends and the different offsets, and we're going to kind of look at all these different just measurements, different ways to break down who was good and who was bad. But either way, it was Kyle Larson's day at Miami.
Oh, and you ask how Allmendinger did it. He was number 1 on restarts, number 1 on defense today. Not great on passing, not great on speed.
Get him while you can and hold on to him. Is that the story? Get him while you can and hold on to him.
That's what you got to do, right? You know, they always talk about you got to, when everybody's bunched up, you got to go on the restarts. If your car's slow, go like gangbusters and then just hang on.
I love it. Yeah, when you look at the top guys on restarts, right, it's Allmendinger, Dillon, who was up there, Briscoe. Like, so it's no surprise, right? You got to get him while you can get him. So, yep. D'Lo, I appreciate you running the keyboard with me being away.
What else have you got planned up here?
I forget this every week. They're getting on me right here. We got fastest lap, Bubba Wallace, right? That's what I heard. There you go. See, I didn't forget this. Well, I did forget, but Xfinity fastest lap, which is a point. So that goes into his column. That helps him as well. Yep,
that's big, and it all matters, right? And that's a legit one too, right? We were talking about how good he was all day. That was good.
No, it was good. It was good. All right, man. Well, we're off to my absolute favorite track of the year, Martinsville, next week. So we'll go to the paperclip. Maybe Blaney can get a bounce back after a couple of engine woes and see what we get. Appreciate you joining this week, bud.
Yeah, can't wait for Martinsville. Going to be a lot of fun, and happy to join you again.
All right, guys. Well, rate, review, subscribe. Appreciate you coming to check us out here on NASCAR Inside the Race. Every race day when the network goes off the air, we'd come on the air. Come join us for more conversation, a little bit more breakdown of the race. Appreciate y'all's time.